the challenge was really how to have that one source of light sort of travel to all the places we needed to. So then we would tuck in, yeah, like LEDs everywhere and give it a very like light, just to fill in or just to feel a little bit more of her face or just to have that. Just so, I mean, we're suspending a lot of like lighting disbelief because the one light bulb is like over here, but it's sort of wrapping around her face as she's like looking away from it, and we're hiding all these sort of like LED tubes all over the place and dimming it way, way, way down so it feels not like it's lit. And there, luckily, because of that space, is there's just so much crap that it's very easy to hide. It was very easy to hide stuff, right? It wasn't like a flat building, a flat ceiling with right corners. It's like we found plenty of places we could really tuck it in.
Well, we're here to chat about your film, uh, House of Spoils, which I just saw a couple of hours ago on Amazon Prime. Uh, I'll be very upfront with you. I'm not a fan of gore horror, if you want to call it, or BlumHouse particularly.
Mhm.
I have seen few films, and I didn't even know anything about House of Spoiled. I didn't even know it existed until I stumbled upon a trailer on YouTube. And I thought it was interesting, the concept of a chef and how that sort of integrates into everything. And it piqued my interest, and I saw it this morning and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah. So it wasn't what I was thinking it would be in terms of my distaste in horror, gore horror, but it was more like it was pretty much like a journey of a chef and how she comes around and everything. So, a good film, and I enjoyed it. And your work in it, of course, as a cinematographer was fantastic. So thank you so much.
Thank you for watching and checking it out. Yeah.
How did you get on board on this project?
Let's see. I think it came through my agent. I'd never met the producers before. Um, but I think there's sort of a tangential connection. I never asked the producers about it, but they produced the second feature for a director I had shot, Andrew Siemens, his first feature. We did this film together called Nancy Please. He did a second feature with the producers from Secret Engine, Drew Hope, Alex Sharfman, and Lucas Joaquin. Um, and they produced a second feature. So maybe there was some sort of connection there, but I'm not really sure. Otherwise, it came through my agent. They sent me the script, and I was immediately taken with the tone and the idea of this chef's journey, and it was a very sort of it's a rich stew of themes. It's there's a lot about leadership, about going back to nature, food as medicine, food as nature, and sort of the how far the fine dining world can kind of go away from that. But also, her journey is like becoming a leader and also a woman, in a predominantly male, industry, and how, she finds her voice. So I thought there was a lot that was very rich about it, and super interesting. And I love the sort of the tone that was in the script that I think make it across into the film of just this really, odd house that starts to like sort of reveal itself and its secrets and how it sort of weighs in just as the chef's journey sort of starts to become more and more intense and stressful. So, I was really taken with the script, and so I met with Bridget and Crudy, and yeah, we just seem to share similar ideas of how to execute the film, and I'm really really thrilled that they brought me on board.
Yeah, and for me, when I saw the trailer, it was this, there's a lot of shows out there about, I think there was one called Chef's Table, and there's tons of others. Uh, and the idea of seeing food being filmed. I actually co-produced a feature documentary called Baristas, which is
Ah,
about baristas, and it was like similar, kind of like how you have to sort of film in a certain way, aside from obviously the story, but that intrigues you, and then it goes from that cleanliness of shots and food and everything to something completely, not only a chef's nightmare, but customer's nightmare, or people who are gonna dine their nightmare. And Did that appeal to you mostly, that little arc, not just of the character, but also the idea of, this wonderful looking food, so fine dining to something completely disastrous?
Yeah, I mean, and we sort of, we hopefully the camera and lighting, reflect that journey. We have obviously like the very structured sort of supposedly Michelin star type restaurant at the beginning of the film, and even the one they visit when she first gets to the estate, Eric Haas's restaurant. Um, it feels very presentational, very precious, and all the food is very, gorgeous, gorgeously designed. Um, we worked with this great food creator Zoe Hedges in Budapest where we shot the film, and she created all those dishes, and they were gorgeous. Um, but and they were works of art, but again, it's like that thing where works of art can be very sterile or very devoid of like the soul, or where you know cooking started in a cauldron on a fire or something like that. And the idea of not just that sort of dichotomy, but also like the back of house and the front of house. We do that thing in the beginning of the film where they create the dish and then it sort of travels into the diners. And um, but when chef is creating the dinner for Toli, like, and she's improvising, right? She gets all the wrong ingredients and she's like back there and it's all handheld and it's very like kinetic because she's just sort of riffing and trying to throw something together. But out there, it's all very calm. We're static on tripods and dollies and not a lot of camera movement, and it's all presentational and it's like rarefied environment. But then in the kitchen, it's like sweat, blood, gore, and everything's sort of like falling apart. And so that kind of like dichotomy of that energy also between like even just the back of house, front of house is super interesting also.
Yeah, I noticed that, and some elements of it. I mean, they're not any comparison by any means. Kind of reminded me of Ratatouille. The whole
Sure.
idea of,
Yeah,
you
yeah. Yeah.
a rat in the kitchen, but obviously it was a completely different thing. But it was in a similar way where whenever you go into the actual restaurant area, it was just this like, amazingly lit room, camera still, steady shots and everything. And that speaks to the story, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what cameras did you guys shoot this on?
So we shot on Sony Venice one, not the second. And we shot with yeah, Canon K35 primes. And then the last third we're on Chameleon Anamorphics. Yeah, when she comes back out. Yeah.
Yeah, I know was it your first time using the Venice?
No, I've shot on it a few times. Yeah, I
How do
really
you
like
like
that
it?
camera.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I mean, you know, uh, we have a lot of nature, obviously, and especially nature at night. So I knew there would be a lot of moonlight, and the dual ISO, especially the high ISO of Sony Venice, I've used a lot. And we had this, I had this great Hungarian gaffer, Zsolt Buti, who sort of old schooler. We were doing night exteriors in the middle of the forest, so we had big sky panels on condors, and I'd be like, I only need 2 foot candles because we would be underexpose it, for moonlight stuff. Like he's like, Eric, we're like at 1% on this. Like I can't go any lower, so we had to like pan it away. It's the camera's like incredibly sensitive, so you could get a lot of coverage and a lot of exposure with very very little instruments. So that was really necessary for us because we had so much moonlight going on, in the film and so many like night exteriors.
Right. And just on an off note, have you tried the Sony Burano yet?
Not yet. Yeah, I've been wanting to though. I'm very curious about it.
Yeah, we purchased one for renting purposes, and it's a
Oh, nice.
phenomenal camera. It's a phenomenal camera, and
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
it's trying to replace Venice, but still a lot of studios and production houses still prefer Venice over Burano. I think it has rolling shutter issues, which they're probably going to fix. Uh, I think this spring. Uh, but it's a great camera. I just thought I mentioned that. I was curious.
Wanting to try. I mean, like a run and gun version of the Venice is amazing because yeah, the Venice
Yeah.
can get built up quite big, and you want something sometimes that can be more mobile and be able to throw around.
And the stabilization on that is amazing. I don't know if you've heard about that.
No, no, yeah, I heard about it. I haven't used it yet.
Yeah,
It's great.
it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Going back to House of Spoils, For me, I mean, there's a lot of things that stand out, right? But for whatever reason, and sometimes you can't explain why certain scenes or certain moments click with the audience, they just do. Um, the scene, I don't want to spoil it, but the scene is when she's inside, um, she goes down the stairs and all that unfolds, right? You know what I'm talking about? That entire sequence after she's there alone, that whole thing from a lighting standpoint was really executed well because especially with the context of what she was going through, that whole sequence. What were some of the challenges, if any, during that part? Because it must have been really hard to light and also not hard to light, but just to be able to, make sure that it's there, but it still reflects the mood.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges? So that, that was a set build.
Right.
We in the wine cellar, we sort of had a portal and then, go into
Right.
basically a set. And so we were able to, but we wanted, me and the production designer, Alex Schaller, like we're very firm believers in sort of, the reality of the world, right? So even though we had the ability to pull out walls and we did it a couple times, we tried to stay true to the geography of the place. And, I think there's only one time we put the camera, oh, maybe it's two times where we put the camera where there should have been a wall. Um, but we knew it would be very, very dim. I mean, like the shapes she created, like the hanging herbs and all like the roots and stuff, and just like the shadows and the space and the shapes it was creating were incredible. And so, we knew that there'd be one bulb that she would turn on, and the question was like how much more light would be in the place. And
Mm.
when we turned on that bulb, it was sort of enough. Like the mood is incredible, right? It's like I think we just spray painted a shitty tungsten bulb and just like let that go, and that's the lighting for the whole place. But what we had, the challenge was really how to have that one source of light sort of travel to all the places we needed to. So then we would tuck in, yeah, like LEDs everywhere and give it a very like light, just to fill in or just to feel a little bit more of her face or just to have that. Just so, I mean, we're suspending a lot of like lighting disbelief because the one light bulb is like over here, but it's sort of wrapping around her face as she's like looking away from it, and we're hiding all these sort of like LED tubes all over the place and dimming it way, way, way down so it feels not like it's lit. And there, luckily, because of that space, is there's just so much crap that it's very easy to hide. It was very easy to hide stuff, right? It wasn't like a flat building, a
Yeah.
flat ceiling with right corners. It's like we found plenty of places we could really tuck it in. Because it was low ceilings too, because we wanted it to feel like a true cellar, like it was underground. So I think it was only like 6.5 feet maybe tall, maybe 7 feet tall ceilings. So it wasn't like very tall ceilings anyway. So we were really, trying to be inventive about where we could hide lights, but it was like it's so full of stuff that it was easy to also just like put a light above a bookcase and then put a bunch of books, in front of it to hide it from the camera and stuff like that. So it just took some time to just like figure out where we needed the light to come from as she moved through the space and make sure that it made sense with the one true source that was in there, which is the light bulb. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I liked about that sequence because in any film, when you're trying to show it's dark, but you also have to lit it up in some capacity so the audience can see it. And sometimes it's a hit or a miss because sometimes you do it in such a way where the audience doesn't fall into that mood because it wasn't probably
Right.
done properly. But in this case, it certainly felt like it that, it was the environment that she was in and she was feeling the stress and the pain of what she was going through. And lighting has a lot to do with it. Not to take away from her performance or anything else, but still.
You. Yeah. Yeah. It was because we had to it was interesting dance and prep because that would be our one light source. We had to sort of talk about it with the directors how that she would move through the space, like because I needed that one source to be in a place where I could start to justify where it went. Right, if it was in another side corner of the room, it would be a real problem. Right, she'd be completely away from all the light or anything. But yeah, deciding to put it over sort of this work table and then she sort of like walks or is constantly like moving in and around it helped us. But yeah, we had to like think about it a lot because it would be that one source essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, let's go back to the beginning of your career. What was that one moment, if you can remember, that defined your journey to where you are today? Like a
It's a tough
film
question.
or a shot or a particular cinematographer. Could be a photo.
To pursue filmmaking?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting question. Um, oh, I don't know if I can say if it's one film. I just remember there was a time basically in college where when I watched films, I was so I just wanted to understand how they created that shot or that mood or that whatever they did,
Mhm.
you know? At that time there was, like I'm gonna date myself, but Seven had come out, um, City of Lost Children, Wong Kar-wai's films were coming out. So they were doing stuff that was just so distinctive visually, and I was like, how are they doing this? Like Wong Kar-wai's step printing, yeah, and just the look of like City of Lost Children and the Skip Bleach of both that and Seven. So I at that point, I'd made videos with friends, but I had no conception of like what it meant to shoot film and to treat it photochemically and like all these processes. Um, and how to achieve those looks. But I was just so it was like detective work for me. I was like, reading every ASC magazine article or any interview I could find with these cinematographers. It was like the first time I learned about cinematographers. Like, who are these guys? Darius Kanji shot both City of Lost Children and Seven, so he might have been the first. And then Chris Doyle obviously was doing all the stuff with Wong Kar-wai. Those were like the first like cinematographers I really like read everything they were like, every interview they gave or anything they were talking about to understand how they achieved like mood, lighting, all just the technical side of things. Um, and I would read things in ASC magazine. I would just have no clue. They talk about Panavision, anamorphic. Like I had, no clue what those were, but I wanted to know and I wanted to understand. And then I would go back and watch the films on like VHS and and like try to understand what they meant when they said these things. Um, and yeah, it was really inspirational. Like I did photography in high school, so I had some sort of grasp about lighting and photochemical processes and film and exposure, but it was like a foreign language. So I just became so intrigued and just like really wanted to. It was like a detective lesson or something, or a detective story. Like I was trying to understand like how did they get this end result from where they started. um so it was really that time, yeah, when I was in undergrad, all these films were coming out that I really started to try
Yeah.
to, yeah, understand what even filmmaking was and how it resulted. It was like, yeah, it was like magic in a way, yeah, and trying to understand that
Yeah.
magic.
Yeah, no, it most certainly is, and thank you for sharing that. I mean, the era of 90s was I don't know if that's the era that you more or less grew up with, but that was one of the best eras in filmmaking and storytelling. I mean, some of the most amazing films have come out, and you named one, Seven, right? And so it really shapes people up, and I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much.
For asking.
Um, when you finished House of Spoils, were there any particular times when, when it goes into post, um, were there any pickup shots involved? If uh, also, if either one, yes or no, what do you remember the first time? Were you at a screening, was it a public screening or a test screening when you saw people watching it, or maybe the producers or the management at Amazon or anything like that?
Let's see. We did do some pickups. They were pretty small things like inserts of cooking
Yeah.
or moments that we had on set. We had a B camera who also would sometimes splinter off and do second unit for us, and a lot of that involved food. Like we shoot a scene where they're cooking with prep, and then if we had to go in tight for dicing onions or something like that, I would help set the frames with the directors, but then the second unit would execute it because food, I'm I'm sure you came across it as baristas. It can be so tedious, right? It's like to
Hmm.
really reflect the process. There's a lot that goes into it, and then to capture every one of those moments, you sort of have to get a lot of get a lot of details. So, we did that on set, but then, I think they found in the editing they still needed more moments, or to elongate, certain sequences. So we did a couple pickups where we just were super tight on like cutting board or getting her making this moment or something like that. Um, as for seeing it for the first time, it's interesting because like as a DP, I see the film like many, many times in the color correct, but it's
Right,
just
right,
me. Usually it's me, the directors, and like the colorist and post soup or something. We've at that point, we're watching it so many times, like the impact of everything is lost on us. We're just looking for technical,
right.
anything that's inconsistent or that's like pops out, the bumps. So the first time actually I saw it with an audience was this past week. They did a screening right before the premiere. It was on Tuesday. And Ariana and the food stylist was there and our editor. I wasn't able to make it to the Fantastic Fest premiere. That was like sort of the main premiere. But I mean, it's always amazing to watch a film with an audience for the first time and like they react to, these moments that you sort of reacted to when you first saw the rough cut on your computer. But yeah, it was awesome, and just like hear them gasp or hear them react to things because yeah, I'm just like my last memory of the film is so late in the process, and we've seen it like 20 times while we're
Yeah.
looking at the color that the impact of it it's all has been lost. So it's always this funny joy to like revisit it with the audience a few months later and then yeah, re-experience it. So yeah, it's always very special to watch it with an audience, and rare because they did, I think, 4 or 5 screenings, but then it'll be online and people won't watch it together after that. Just
Yeah,
sad.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I completely agree. I had that um during COVID. We did a bunch of test screenings and I had no idea what people are reacting like because they're just on their computer. But there's absolutely, hands down, no better feeling. I think it's even a bit better feeling than making a film, just to sit there and watch the audience or get their reaction after the film. It's just an amazing experience.
Yeah, and I mean that's the best part about premiering the film for sure. And I wish I could have made it to the festival because it's when you get to actually talk to audiences and hear their reactions and yeah.
Yeah, there's always next time.
Yes.
Um, in this film or just in general in your career, can you, and I know it's a hard question to answer because you can't pick your, for the lack of a better word, your favorite babies. But was there a moment or a shot where you felt like, that was really good and you gave yourself a pat on the back?
um, let's see.
Or something you're proud of, let's put it that way. I know the other question sounded a little too, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about another film. I want to think about one
Sure.
for House of Spoils. There's definitely a few in House of Spoils, but the one of the shots from this film I did called The Sound of Silence with Peter Sarsgaard and Rashida Jones. He plays a made up job called a house tuner, where he goes into people's houses, listens to their soundscape of like their refrigerator or their toaster or whatever, and and believes that it's influencing them, their insomnia or their anxiety or their depression. And so he'll tweak the soundscape in the house. He'll like fix like their appliance to change the audio landscape and then influence their psychology or their emotions. And so Rashida Jones plays one of his clients. The end of the film sort of culminates in this blackout of New York City. And this was an indie film, so there's no way we're going to do anything that on
Of
a scale
course.
that can reflect like the fact that New York City is blacked out. Other than a few sort of isolated shots that we shot in the middle of like Greenpoint where there's like no lights. um, so the this sort of climactic scene, they go to the rooftop to look out at the city. And originally, so we shot this in Brooklyn, sort of near Crown Heights, on this like top floor of an apartment building. I forget, it's maybe like 8 floors up. And we were shooting other stuff in that apartment, and the whole day, like the genie crew are schlepping equipment up. It's a walk up, so they're schlepping up equipment all day. And my initial conception was like, I'm gonna try to put like one small light very, very far away and hope it feels like ambient light that's sort of illuminating them, but doesn't feel like it's a film light. Like, because the thought of, exactly what we're talking about, the thought of like lighting something that where there's no light is obviously the most challenging thing.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you make it feel real? How do you but still be able to read the actors and still feel them? And it was something I always worried about. And I think I walked in that day still not having a firm plan and hoping that I would have time to like tweak it, throw this light up and then futz with it enough to to make it feel somewhat real. But so we get to this rooftop, and we chose this rooftop because it's pretty high too, and we could see above other sort of apartment buildings that we wouldn't see. If people were home and had lights on, we wouldn't really get into our frame. We'd see mostly like Brooklyn rooftops. Um, Now, for whatever reason, it was just a luck of weather, but it was incredibly foggy that night, right? And what actually happened was when we got up there, we were going to start setting up lighting for the scene. There was enough sort of ambient light from the city bouncing off the fog to illuminate the actors, just barely there. I mean, we were shooting on Alexa Mini at the time, and it
Mm.
was at the very, very toe of exposure, but you could just barely make out their faces. You could see them against the night sky, which is still sort of a purple because of all the fog. Um, but it felt so real and so natural and like better than like if I turned on a light, it would have felt so fake. And so I was like, I think we can just shoot this. And we set up the camera, we looked at the exposure. It's like it's barely there, but if we commit to this, like you're never going to be able to make it brighter. So if we commit to this, then we could just do it like this because it looks so much more natural than anything I would have lit with our indie film package. um so I'm proud of not having turned on a light in that shot.
Mm.
I guess is a
Yeah, I
thing I'm
get
most
it.
proud of.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. It's always interesting how sometimes those things unfold and the universe is trying to help you to figure it out. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
again, it's an amazing feeling when things
yeah,
just
totally.
work out, when you're stressing over it and trying to come up with a plan, nothing works and it just happens.
Yeah, you can't count on it, but when it happens, it's pretty
Yeah, I know,
incredible.
I
I mean,
know,
even
I know.
it's interesting because even I mean, still speaking of fog and House of Spoils, um, for like the anytime we were sort of shooting the garden or anytime there was some sort of supernatural element, I would ask for a lot of atmosphere, even outside, which is very tough to do because of wind. Um, but we wanted to give it that mystical quality or this otherworldly feeling. And again, just by the geography of it, like by the time we wrapped shooting, the area around our house was always wrapped in fog, like all the time. And we shot over 2 months. So by the time we ended there, like a lot of the night exteriors, especially towards the end of the film where you see all the hazy fog, it's obviously from the geography and nature helping us. But initially, when we first started shooting, we were constantly adding fog, for outdoor scenes. But like nature caught up with us, I guess, or helped us at the end. And that end scene just feels so much more epic because of that. So we were really, really lucky. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's always good to hear. I wish there was a way of, I there's a lot of like behind the scenes stuff in this podcast, and there's so many other podcasts, but just even interviews at the press junket, you always hear these stories, and they're just so fascinating to hear, like how, what audience experiences in like 30 seconds or a minute,
Yeah,
and how and what kind of hassle you had to go through to get that done. It's
totally.
incredible. Yeah, yeah,
Totally.
awesome. What's cooking up next for you if it's something that you're able to share?
Nothing firm to share. It's funny, I've been getting a lot of horror scripts, so maybe another horror film, which I enjoyed. Um, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, nothing
Is
firm
there
yet.
is there a genre that you would like to tackle besides horror? Because obviously, you know what happens in Hollywood or in the film world, you become kind of like, pigeonholed into one role.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Let's see. I mean, I haven't done any sort of sci-fi yet, which I would love. But I would say, my filmography is sort of all over the place. I think because, well, hopefully, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe my agent has other thoughts. But I, you know, for me, whenever I read scripts, it's all about the character and the story journey as opposed to the genre. So I'm always like super invested in interesting, directors with interesting takes on, wherever this character or the story is going, no matter the genre. So we'll see. Maybe I can keep hopping genres, which would be nice because I feel like I've been able to do that. But sci-fi is one I haven't done yet, and when I was especially in high school in the '90s, I was a huge sci-fi nerd. So it would be fun to tackle one of those.
Amazing. That's awesome. Well, I hope you get to.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for this chat. I appreciate it and your work on House of
Yeah,
Spoils. I, again, like one of the things you talked about earlier was Seven, and I think Seven was one of the first films, I could be wrong, that created that look. Maybe Alien 3 as well, which was also David Fincher. It
sure.
created
Yeah,
that it created that look. And most of his films are like that. But, in this film, and there's a lot of film which try to sort of borrow from Seven in terms of look. But sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. In this one, it definitely created that ambience and it worked for me. So congratulate you on that.
that's a huge compliment. I appreciate that. Thanks again for having me and speaking to me about the House of Spoils. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise, and for audience, The House of Spoils is on Amazon Prime, and I would love to chat with you in the future for any other projects that may come your way, which I'm sure there will be many.